Welcome. In tonight's journey, we step quietly into the world of a World War II field hospital. Not the clash of battle, but the slower rhythm that followed. The tents where the wounded were carried, where life continued in fragile, uncertain ways. We will not linger on blood or noise, but instead on the quiet routines, the patience, and the small details that shape these places. Our story will move in 4 parts. First, we will imagine what it was like to be an ordinary soldier in a field hospital, living with discomfort and repetition. Then, we will meet a remarkable doctor whose work changed the future of medicine. After that, we will explore the forgotten traces of abandoned hospitals. And finally, we will consider the contrasting world of high-ranking officers, whose experiences were markedly different. Settle back, let the pace be gentle and steady, and allow this history to unfold slowly, like the turning of pages. Imagine yourself as a soldier, carried from the battlefield to a cluster of canvas tents set up on uneven ground. The air smells faintly of antiseptic dust and diesel. The fabric walls shift in the wind, and at night, lanterns glow softly through them. Inside, stretchers lie in long rows, close enough that you can hear the breathing of the man beside you. The ground is hard. Sometimes planks, sometimes straw. Blankets are thin, never quite warm enough. The days are long. Much of the time is waiting. For a doctor to pass, for bandages to be changed, for a cup of soup or tea. Meals are plain, barely enough to fill you, but they mark the passing of hours. Nurses move calmly between beds, speaking in low voices, adjusting bandages, bringing comfort where they can. Presence is steady, even when supplies are short and fatigue is written on their faces. The environment is harsh. In summer, the tents are stifling, buzzing with flies. In winter, breath hangs in the frosty air. Yet in the midst of hardship, the rhythm of the hospital becomes familiar. Boots on the ground, the clink of enamel cups, the soft murmur of voices. It is not a place of rest, but of endurance. For some, strength slowly returns. For others, the waiting stretches on. And always, life continues in its subdued, measured way beneath the canvas walls. From the crowded tents of the field hospital, let us turn now to one remarkable figure who worked far from the front lines, but whose influence was felt by countless men. His name was Archibald McIndoe, a surgeon from New Zealand who became one of the most important doctors of the Second World War. McIndoe specialized in treating severe burns, the kind that many airmen suffered after their planes were hit in combat, at a military hospital in East Grinstead, in the south of England. He began experimenting with new methods of surgery and recovery. His work was both medical and humane, reshaping not only bodies, but also the way patients lived after treatment. He rejected the idea of keeping men hidden away. Instead, he encouraged them to live as normally as possible, to walk outside, to eat together, and to be seen by the townspeople. His patients, many of whom had endured devastating injuries, formed a group known as the Guinea Pig Club. The name was chosen with quiet humor, for they were part of experiments in reconstructive surgery, but also part of a supportive community that lifted spirits in difficult times. McIndoe's methods were practical as well as pioneering. He used skin grafts in new ways, rotated tissue to aid healing, and insisted on patient comfort in every step of recovery. Just as important, he worked to ensure that those under his care would not be defined by injury, but by resilience. The hospital became unusual in its atmosphere. Instead of hushed clinical silence, there was conversation, laughter, and music. Visitors were welcome. Men in bandages were encouraged to visit the local pub to be part of daily life again, even as they healed. This approach was revolutionary, and it changed the culture of wartime medicine. For many soldiers, McIndoe's work meant more than physical survival. It meant dignity, companionship, and the hope of returning to ordinary life. The Guinea Pig Club continued to meet for decades after the war, a living testament to the surgeon's compassion. In the quiet halls of that hospital, far from the noise of battle, healing took on a new meaning, one that was measured not only in wounds closed, but in spirits lifted. As time passed, many field hospitals vanished almost as quickly as they had appeared. They were meant to be temporary. After all, tents on open ground, wooden huts built in haste, or barns and schools taken over for urgent use. Yet across Europe and beyond, traces of these places still remain. In quiet forests, rusting bed frames lie beneath fallen leaves. Bottles that once held antiseptic or pain relief rest half buried in the soil. In some places, fragments of enamel mugs or medical kits still surface after the rain. These objects are small, but they tell us of the countless days and nights spent in waiting, treatment, and care. Archaeologists who study such sites often find them understated, even gentle. Unlike battlefields with their heavy scars, field hospitals suggest recovery and pause. A patch of flattened ground where tents once stood. Shallow trenches dug for drainage. Faded paperwork, a few words still legible in pencil, carrying the names of men who passed through. Some of these hospitals were larger and more permanent. Concrete bunkers, especially in coastal areas, were equipped as casualty stations. Many still stand today, their walls marked by faint traces of paint, their air cool and still. Walking through them, one can imagine the hum of generators, the smell of disinfectant, and the steady voices of staff moving about their duties. These remnants remind us that, even in war, there were spaces set aside for care, for healing, and for endurance. There are quieter landscapes within the wider story, where survival was given its fragile chance. Not every patient in a World War II hospital shared the same experience. For high-ranking officers and generals, medical care often unfolded in a different atmosphere altogether. Instead of crowded canvas tents, you were more likely to rest in quieter quarters. Sometimes in requisitioned houses, schools, or large manor homes far from the front. Their rooms were often private, with proper beds, thicker blankets, and windows that could be opened to fresh air. Meals were more substantial, drawn from officer rations or prepared by cooks who served smaller groups. Their doctors and nurses tended to have fewer patients, which meant more time for careful attention. Recovery, while never guaranteed, unfolded at a slower and more comfortable pace. Visitors could be received more freely, letters and newspapers arrived more promptly, and even small luxuries, tea sets, books, or writing desks, softened the long hours of rest. The contrast with the enlisted men's wards was stark. Where ordinary soldiers lay shoulder to shoulder in drafty tents, officers were surrounded by space and calm. Where supplies were rationed for the many, they were stretched more generously for the few. This separation reflected the hierarchy of the military itself. It was not unusual for an officer's convalescence to be almost domestic in nature, resembling a quiet retreat rather than a field station. While ordinary soldiers endured the rhythm of waiting and uncertainty, their commanders recovered in relative privacy and ease. The difference is telling. In the shared story of the war, even within hospitals, lines of rank and privilege remained firmly drawn. And so we come to the end of our quiet journey through the world of the World War II field hospital. We have imagined the experience of ordinary soldiers lying beneath canvas tents, waiting through long days and nights in the care of overworked staff. We have considered the work of Archibald McIndoe, whose vision of healing went beyond the body to include dignity, community, and hope. We have wandered through the remnants that remain in scattered objects and empty bunkers, whispers of the countless lives that once passed through them. And we have reflected on the contrast between enlisted men and their officers, each enduring the same war, yet recovering in such different circumstances. What these stories reveal is not only the hardship of war, but also the persistence of care. Even in the most uncertain conditions, people created spaces where wounds could close, where spirits could be lifted, and where survival could take root. As you listen now in the stillness of the present, it may be comforting to think of how far removed we are from those fragile tents and hurried wards. Your surroundings are safe, your bed steady and warm, the night outside calm. The past lingers only as memory, while the present offers peace. Let these final thoughts settle over you gently like a blanket. The rhythm of history is steady, unhurried, and always continuing. You need only rest within it. Good night.